And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed.
Planned Parenthood joins forces with the Satanic Temple.
And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. The dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born.
Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them.
Now, the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. I will put enmity between thee and the woman.
And Noah begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
And between thy seed.
These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God.
And her seed.
Throughout history, on every continent, serpent worship has flourished. In the Americas, the Mayans and the Aztecs worshipped a variety of reptilian gods, sea serpents, feathered serpents, and powerful dragons.
The priest class that ruled the Mesoamerican cultures, Toltec, Mayan, Aztec.
The Aztecs credit the plumed serpent Quetzalcoatl with fathering their civilization. In exchange for this gift of knowledge and technology, the Aztec priests would graciously offer tens of thousands of human sacrifices.
They would have the daily sacrifices, and the lower priest, it would sell beneath the pyramid, in the market, the human flesh.
Huangdi, or the Yellow Emperor, was the first emperor of China. He was said to be the son of a dragon. The Chinese, Koreans, and Japanese speak throughout their history of dragons. Dragons who possess both physical and non-physical form. The lineage of kings that descend from a race of dragons is often claimed by Asian emperors. When the spirit of the dragon is invoked, human sacrifice is sure to follow. Legendary Mayan story of Kukulkan speaks of serpents of wisdom, enlightening the people, but also devouring their children.
Kukulkan by the Maya is depicted in a number of ways. Sometimes he is human, sometimes he's a serpent. Sometimes we see him emanating from a serpent's head.
You are the Grand Dragon of the clan in Georgia?
That's correct.
That's the highest office in Georgia?
That's correct.
The Kukulkan and the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan are invoking the same serpent deity. There are spirits in charge of regional locations. Both of these occult orders have come in contact with the same ancient evil that inhabits the Americas and thrives on human sacrifice.
Calvin Craig, Grand Dragon of Georgia, United Klans of America, Knights of the Ku Klux Klan.
The Klan for the first year or more than a year was simply a group that was a social group, and as a social group, they developed rituals. They developed elaborate mystical rituals that came from fraternity rituals, they came from Masonic rituals.
Albert Pike served as a brigadier general in the Confederate Army. Following the war, Pike was jailed for treason. He was quickly pardoned by fellow Freemason President Andrew Johnson. Among eventually becoming a 33-degree Mason and a top leader of the Ku Klux Klan, Pike was also believed to be a Luciferian. He claimed he was able to summon Lucifer at will as the Grand Master of the Order of the Palladium. Palladism, or traditional Satanism, an ancient Luciferian cult, was then introduced to the inner circle of the Masonic lodges. This influence has flourished into modern-day Freemasonry in the super rites of the upper degrees.
And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pained to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. And his tail drew the 3rd part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. The dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born.
The London boundary mark is surrounded by dragons, which are the most obvious and visible. If you follow them, they can take you all over the city. This is their story. The dragon boundary marks are cast iron statues of dragons on metal or stone plinths that mark the boundaries of the City of London. The dragons are painted silver, with details of their wings and tongue picked out in red. The dragon stands on its 2 rear legs, with the right foreleg raised and the left foreleg holding a shield which bears the City of London's coat of arms, painted in red and white. The design is based on 2 large dragon sculptures 7 feet high, which were mounted above the entrance to the coal exchange on Lower Thames Street. Those cast iron dragons were erected as dragon boundary marks in October 1963 in Temple Gardens on Victoria Embankment.
Dragons, gargoyles, serpent mounds, pyramids, and obelisks are high places marking the perimeter of satanic strongholds.
Temple Bar Dragon is a different breed to the other dragons. It stands guard over the boundary between the City of London and the City of Westminster. The Temple Bar Dragon looks rather more fierce than the others. It is the tallest of all the dragons and has a very gothic look to it. Unlike the other boundary dragon, it is black and not silver. There are 2 replicas of the Coal Exchange Dragon at the south end of London Bridge, 2 on High Holborn, and single replicas on Aldgate High Street, Bishopsgate, Moorgate, Aldersgate Street, Farringdon Street, and at the south end of Blackfriars Bridge. At the heart of London are 2 cities, the City of London and the City of Westminster. The City of London is the ancient part of London that was once known as the Roman city of Londinium.
The dragon, that old serpent which is the devil and Satan. And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the 4 quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea.
Gog and Magog are in the 4 corners of the earth.
Donald Trump has played so far. He's a billionaire businessman and property mogul.
A front runner in the race to be the next US president.
Many admire him for his straight talking.
And now he's apparently been made a Knight of the Round Table in Tintagel and can call himself Sir. Heidi Davey reports.
Well, as the legend goes here in Tintagel, only the best knights in King Arthur's kingdom are invited to sit at the prestigious Round Table. It's an honour bestowed on only a few, and Donald Trump has now been added to that list. The question is, though, why?
So from henceforth, Donald Trump will be known at Camelot Castle as Sir Donald Trump of Camelot.
He's really not joking, by the way, as the process for selection is extremely serious here in North Cornwall.
We do it very, very rarely, and we do it. It is a great honour because the Noble Order of Camelot Castle is something that we do take very, very seriously. We have granted knighthoods previously. Some of them obviously are private for obvious reasons. I think he is one of the most noble men today in the world, and I think what he is doing is something that will go down in history, and I think King Arthur would be proud.
Merlin went on to interpret the appearance of a comet in the form of a fiery dragon as heralding the death of Aurelius, the ascendancy of Uther, and the coming of King Arthur. He then played his well-known leading part in bringing about Arthur's conception by helping Uther Pendragon to deceive the wife of the Duke of Cornwall into sleeping with him at the fortress of Tintagel.
The Duke of Cornwall is away fighting Uther's forces somewhere else in Cornwall, and Uther is changed by Merlin magically into the shape of Gorlois, the Duke of Cornwall. Gets into Tintagel and lies one night with the Duchess, and then goes away. So she never knows that it wasn't her own husband, and that night was conceived the infant Arthur. There's no question in my mind but that this reflects the theme found over and over again in ancient Celtic mythology, whereby a king is believed to be the son of a god, or the god, Lugh, who sleeps with the queen on the night that the new king is conceived. And this was a matter of pride, that kings were each the son of the god.
Recently, it was, I don't remember how many days ago it was, but Donald Trump was knighted, what's called the Knights of the Round Table in England. And only few people ever received this quote-unquote honor. But what I found was interesting is when I looked at the emblem, this secret society or this group of individuals that are brought to this round table. And this emblem is a picture of a cross with a round table with a red dragon. Now, what does the scripture say about the red dragon, people? The emblem of the Knights of the Round Table, worn round the necks of all the knights, was given to them by King Arthur as part of the ceremony of their being made a knight. The red dragon of King Arthur represented their alliance to the king. The Round Table was illustrative of the eternity of God, the equality, unity, and comradeship of the order, and singleness of purpose of all the knights. Now, it says here that the red dragon represents the alliance to the king. Well, who's the king?
Who is the king? In the case of most U.S. presidents who descend from European royal families, the answer is simple. But in Trump's case, even though he too descends from a royal bloodline, his allegiance seems to lie elsewhere. The papacy and the Jesuit order also invoke the occult power of the serpent. As the so-called Vicar of Christ, the Pope claims authority as King of Kings in Christ's absence. The Pope's deification of the serpent is in full display through the architecture of Paul VI's Hall.
You look at the bloodlines of the American presidents.
All men are created equal. Indeed, Brother Washington, all Freemasons meet as equals, and we have an opportunity to create a nation in the very essence of Masonic morality.
It is a known fact that all the presidents that have, well, reigned in the United States have all been related.
Great idea if we wore our Masonic regalia when we're putting in place the foundation stone for the Capitol building.
All 44 U.S. presidents have carried European royal bloodlines.
Say regalia? Yes. Well, it would be wonderfully symbolic, don't you think?
You'll be wanting to put the all-seeing eye on our banknotes next.
Although there have been stories recorded of dragons taking on forms of many other creatures, the most commonly recurring theme is the shapeshift from dragon to human or from human to dragon, a theme that has been recorded throughout history and is an ability which seems to be particularly associated with royalty and dragon bloodlines, and I will go on to explore this theme when we climb into some more mythological stories.
See, all of these legends come from real places.
The Queens referred to dark forces at work in this country, of which we know nothing. And similarly, the doomed Diana thought, rightly or wrongly, that assorted agents of darkness were trying to kill her.
Known as corpse medicine, it was popular amongst British royalty, Queen Elizabeth's predecessors.
Eating the executed. Physicians, scholars, and noblemen generally believed in the healing power of death. It was assumed that all organisms had a predetermined lifespan. Even someone who had been executed obviously had some life that should have been left over, so demand for the lifeblood and body of the executed was quite high.
William III and Queen Mary both took potions containing human skull.
Charles II enjoyed these potions so much that he bought the recipe and mixed his own. These remedies were made using body parts supplied from an illegal grave robbing industry and blood freshly drank from the executed.
Like her husband, Prince Philip, Queen Elizabeth came from a royal family of name changers to cover up their German identity. Before 1917, the British royals bore the German name of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, which was changed to the more British-sounding name of Windsor. The Queen and Philip are both the great-great-grandchildren of Queen Victoria, who married her German first cousin. That makes Elizabeth and Philip inbred kissing cousins.
Eating from solid gold plates.
Medical cannibalism. Both Queen Mary II and her uncle, King Charles II, both took distilled human skull on their deathbeds in 1698 and 1685. But again, they did this as late as even 100 years after. Cannibalism was not only found in the New World, as often believed, but also in Europe.
In Voodoo, there's the cult of the python. Its practitioners offer the sacrifice of blood to quench the serpent's thirst.
Wherefore ye be witnesses unto yourselves that ye are the children of them which killed the prophets. Fill ye up then the measure of your fathers. Ye serpents, ye generation of vipers, how can ye escape the damnation of hell?
In the event that I'm reincarnated, Philip said, I would like to return as a deadly virus, thinking his high-handed Karl would solve overpopulation.
Planned Parenthood joins forces with the Satanic Temple in their attacks against Missouri's abortion law.
I don't dislike babies, though I think very young ones rather disgusting, said Queen Victoria.
In my lifetime, we have seen global wildlife populations decline by over half. Africa's rapidly growing human population is predicted to more than double by 2050, a staggering increase of 3.5 million more people per month. Urbanization, infrastructure, development, cultivation, all good things in themselves. But they will have a terrible impact unless we begin to plan and to take measures now.
A woman says her rights were violated when she was required by law to wait 3 days to have an abortion. And a religious organization is supporting her. That organization is called the Satanic Temple.
Has Donald Trump sworn his allegiance to the Great Red Dragon?
The rapper tweeting, you don't have to agree with Trump, but the mob can't make me not love him. We are both dragon energy. He is my brother.
I am Daenerys Stormborn, of House Targaryen, of the blood of old Valyria. I am the dragon's daughter. The dragon's daughter. The dragon's daughter.
It sounds like there's a feeling that Meghan is welcome as fresh blood, if you like.
Meghan Markle is the latest American to marry into the British monarchy. But did you know the 36-year-old already has royalty in her blood?
I think that's everyone's first question is, how is she related to royalty?
We do have a president who seems to be pretty blatantly doing favors for his next of kin.
There's nothing to do with nepotism, but I want to tell you, the people that know that Ivanka would be dynamite.
Through a lot of research, navigating through old documents, from marriage certificates to obituaries, going back 24 generations, she discovered Meghan is related to Edward III, the former King of England, and the nobleman Roger Mortimer.
Though the trainee royal's late mother said she was sorry her sons were, in her words, so keen on killing. To Diana, they'd grown into a couple of little thugs who'd boast to classmates of granny's castles. When I'm king, Prince William would say when thwarted, I'm going to send my knights around to kill you. If you give me a hard time, he told a schoolboy opponent, I'll get my dad to cut your head off. As if aware of some entitlement to adopt the serial killer Henry VIII as a murderous role model. They are never happier than when they have a gun in their hands, their mother noted, though warning them not to be photographed with guns. I told them, she said, royal killing sprees start young. Prince William would kill his first stag on his grandmother's Berkhold estate, aged 14, after which the head stalker, Sandy Masson, bloodied the boy in an initiation rite that followed the royal slaughter. Notably, when Trinidad became a dominion in 1962, a UK court was retained for its appeals, and the Queen herself signs off the court's business. Though Britain would shortly abolish capital punishment, Trinidad's government maintained the practice, and the anomaly meant that the Queen approved death warrants referred to her from this judicial committee. Thus it is the case in the Caribbean, where Elizabeth is Queen, in Belize, the Bahamas, Barbados, St. Lucia, and Jamaica, and in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Christopher and Nevis, that a royal pen wields terminal power on death row. Thus, as a direct result, on the 16th of May 1975, in Royal Jail, Port of Spain, the prison superintendent arrived at a cell door at dawn, and he handed Michael de Freitas, the prisoner waiting inside, the dismissal of his last appeal, signed Elizabeth R. Then he'd say, with a fatalistic grin, "So, now I'm in a cell in her royal jail, and now it's her powerful royal noose that sends me to her kingdom come. Can you dig it?" Michael was hooded, then led to the gallows under armed guard, and, while there's no death penalty in our own country, Michael was hanged by the neck by royal command until Michael X, also known as Abdul Malik, was pronounced dead. His death warrant had been signed by the Queen on the 14th of May, 1975. Michael was hanged, then drawn, meaning he was left to swing, it being the royal jail's colonial tradition.
Christ hath redeemed us for the curse of the law, being made a curse for us. For it is written, Cursed is every one that hangeth on a tree.
On the 6th of July, 1999, 25 years after Michael's death, the same royal custom persists, with 9 executions in 4 days. Trinidad's prison commissioner, Cipriani Baptiste, told the press that the royal jail's gallows had been freshly oiled. But given that it's Her Majesty's courts, Her Majesty's prison service, Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary, Her Majesty's armed forces, Her Majesty's government, and taxes and subjects, being quite so inordinately majestic, could go to your head. Prince Harry was sent to an Afghan war zone as political propaganda. Harry's bombs land on an area of Afghanistan in February 2008, and as Joint Terminal Attack Controller, Harry slaughters 34 Afghanis by using what's nicknamed Kill TV. He's then thought to have boasted of it in Bougie's nightclub. Codenamed Widow 6-7, Harry studies a regional map, pokes a finger at where the enemy's likely to be, then he instructs US aircrews to blast to smithereens, as if Afghan tribespeople were merely Norfolk pheasants.
What do you see as the biggest challenges in conservation?
The growing human population. Because if where we are, there's nothing else.
And do you have views about what should be done about that?
Can't you guess?
Predictable, given his fascist flavouring, Philip's no stranger to genocide. In the event that I'm reincarnated, Philip has said, I would like to return as a deadly virus, thinking his high-handed Carl would, in words, solve overpopulation.
At the basis of it all is this colossal increase in the human population. It's one of the living species of the planet, but it's reaching plague proportions.
Prince Otto, his younger brother, decided that the only way to keep his sanity while Ludwig was reigning was to shoot a peasant a day. So he shot them in the garden, then would wonder why his garden was overgrown. Catherine the Great locked up her hairdresser for over 3 years to stop him spreading the news she had dandruff. King Henry Christoph of northern Haiti liked forcing his royal guards to prove their loyalty by marching them off cliff tops, while Henry executed those who refused. Likewise, the Queen's sister, Princess Margaret, who was so royal that she'd sometimes answer the phone with the matchless phrase, "This is royalty speaking," as if expecting a long-distance curtsy. Huffley walked out of the film Schindler's List because she thought it was anti-German. The princess's views on any races or condition of men that differed from her own were distasteful. She told Chicago's mayor the Irish were pigs, all pigs, and as for India, she hated those little brown people. Princess Margaret would parrot the views of the Queen Mother, an unabashed supporter of white rule.
Papers show the extent of the British colonial officers' involvement in employing the most cruel torture techniques against the Kenyans, including beating up and burning the revolutionaries alive, as well as severe sexual assaults and castration, which were used as the most regular and common torture techniques.
Queen Elizabeth cited only one of the most popular shows in the world, Game of Thrones, in her annual Christmas Day speech on Thursday.
Who came to the set of Game of Thrones?
The Queen.
Yes!
The more you view mainstream entertainment through the lens of discernment, the more you can see a pattern start to emerge. Whether it's predictive programming harnessing the power of collective consciousness, or simply a need for the creators to speak their truth, it seems that Hollywood spellcasters cannot resist the impulse to tell the story of their family origins, the story of their family tree.
Taylor also posted this pic with a pregnant friend backstage and described herself as, quote, mother of snakes.
How cool was it when the Queen of England visited the set of Game of Thrones?
While my tour of the set of Game of Thrones may have gained most attention,
the creators of Game of Thrones are subtly emphasizing reptilian fertility through the metaphorical character of Khaleesi and the constant declaring of her title, Mother of Dragons.
I, Daenerys of House Targaryen, first of my name, breaker of chains and mother of dragons.
Her fertility stands in stark contrast to her army, the Unsullied, an army of castrated, expendable servants.
The world hadn't seen a dragon in centuries until my children were born.
In the real world, the elite use incest to protect the dragon bloodlines, and they use eugenics to destroy the seed of their enemies. This is the real Game of Thrones.
But a democratic monarchy is an oxymoron, such as a knighthood, for example, for Norman Schwarzkopf, the US general who said Iraq's dead weren't worth counting. And another knighthood for Kissinger, a criminal, who swaggeringly proclaimed power was an aphrodisiac after he'd carpet-bombed Cambodia. Why should we flagellate ourselves, the dissembling Sir Henry likes to ask, for what the Cambodians did to each other? In the hard logic of war, what difference did it make if you shot your enemy or starved him to death? I want every Iraqi soldier bleeding from every orifice, General Schwarzkopf would sadistically announce, after which the Queen gave this ghoul her greatest honor. Other pillars of the American state join in the queue for awards, royalty-mongering specters of the US machine, Caspar Weinberger of the Iran-Contra drugs for arms affair, and Brent Scowcroft, Kissinger's gopher, and now Knights of the British Empire. For services to law enforcement, J. Edgar Hoover, the head of the FBI, phone-tapped Martin Luther King for 10 years, is pleased to find himself similarly ennobled. This particular monarch is the beneficiary of dividends produced by an empire's corpse mountain, vast sums squirreled away without apology. It began with the royal namesake Elizabeth I licensing thieves to kit themselves out as predatory pirates for the purpose of raiding Spanish ships and plundering their contents, then bringing stolen gold to their pimping Gloriana.
So Bruno Peake, who's the pageant master, presents the Jubilee Crystal Diamond to the Queen.
I just thought, since it's mainstream news right now, British royalty dined on human flesh, I thought I would just bring that up to you. But not so much even the dining on the human flesh. They like to split the head open and get the pituitary gland and eat it. It's the old-fashioned growth hormone. You know, the rich people today spend millions of dollars getting the scores of facelifts and Botox and liposuction and blood transfusions. And yeah, but that's for the lower-level nouveau riche. The British royalty, they like to eat the pituitary gland. And it goes on in the article that it was medical. It was so they'd live longer. But they also enjoyed the dishes.
This is the white drawing room. Looks beautiful, doesn't it? Beautiful cabinet here, wonderful vase, gold candlesticks there, absolutely lovely. But if I just rather gently pull on this, you will see, I tell you, it takes a bit of muscle. Well, you must have more muscles than you realise. If you pull this open, you can see that actually behind this, there is a secret passage leading to the Queen's private apartments. Now, Anna, you're in charge of the royal collection here, aren't you? Why would the Queen need a secret door?
There's a reason they call it bloodthirsty. All these terms have a root. Transylvanian royalty, German royalty, French royalty, Dutch royalty. And it's a secret process they reportedly still engage in, but as early as just 60, 70 years ago, it was on record that they would bathe, women especially, in the blood of children. And we know who these folks are. See, it's not that they're smarter or even better than us. It's that they're willing to do things that normal people wouldn't do. They're very sick, they're very degenerate, they're very mentally ill, and they lust for power and control. They think war and death is beautiful. And they're trying to now sell the general public on death and torture and murder and sadomasochism to turn our civilization into something that resembles the world they want. They want to bring all this out in the open. And that's what all the Lady Gaga, vampirism, and all that's about for our young girls. That's what the record suicides are about, and little girls cutting themselves up. Parents just turn themselves over to absolute, total evil.
Queen Elizabeth II, head of state of the United Kingdom and 31 other states and territories. She is the legal owner of about 6,600 million acres of land. That's 1/6 of the Earth's non-ocean surface. She is the only person on Earth who owns whole countries and who owns countries that are not her own domestic territory. This land ownership is separate from her role as head of state and is different from other monarchies where no such claim is made. The value of her landholding, $17 trillion. That's approximately.
What I'm trying to say to you right now is that they are creating the structure. They're creating the structure of a totalitarian, one-world government